Guys, so here we go. Now, hopefully you read the directions. I went back in after I talked yesterday about importing the saved version of the line drawing. Again, if you try to do that through the import, what ends up happening is that it only allows you to import it as a layer. It does not allow you, unfortunately, to work on the layer as an individual piece. So hopefully you read the directions and hopefully you just left the Kleki window open in your browser at some point. If not, you're going to have to do what I did today, which was go back in and redraw all of the contour lines. All right, so lesson learned. Hopefully you guys are reading that as you're working on this. And now we're going to get into the painting. So the first thing I need to do, obviously, I want to zoom in so I can see where I am. So I'll zoom in a little bit here. And again, I have these lines which help to define edges of separation and value. And if I come back now to my brush and I come into my color, right, this color in here, I want it to be first, I want to block in some of the darks. So using a regular brush, which I have right here, right now it's at a size 13, and you can kind of see the circle. That circle gives me, the size of the brush stroke, right? So that's right now set on black. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to pick a color that's similar to that background color, that darker blue-gray. So I'm going to come over here into the darker blue-grays, and I'm going to use that to just kind of come up against the edge of that line and just kind of put that in lightly. All right, I got another one here. So I'm just kind of throwing some of those in where those darker values are. Got a little bit of one over here. You notice how I'm leaving some of the areas of highlight visible? For example, right here, I got a highlight edge along that. And then I've got this other blue, and then I have the darker blue. So that's going to allow me to maintain some of the edges of separation with highlights. So you can see what I've done so far. If I go to my layers and zoom out, you can see that I've just blocked in some dark areas. Okay, so I'm going to bring that back up, zoom back in, and I'm going to continue to put a few of those dark areas back in. So I go back to my brush, and I look at my color, and up here I can see I got a little bit of a lighter gray color, right? So I'm looking at the original photo, what kind of color do I have in that area? Over here I got a little bit more of a blue-gray. So I'm kind of punching that color in there. Up here I've got a much more blue, almost a blue-violet color. So I'm kind of putting that in. Actually, that needs to be a little bit darker. So I can undo that. And I can come in here, and that's a little bit better there. All right. So as I start now, I'm just kind of blocking stuff in. And you can see where the blocking started. A little bit more of that here. Now as I get to these highlight areas, if I come in with the blend brush right here, it's at a size 22, and I take that same color and put it up against that, let's take a look at what that did, right? This is really, really big. That color and this color really didn't blend all that well. So what we're going to really do with this assignment is we're going to be using this sketchy brush right here. And I'm going to block in, so some of these areas where I've got this lighter value, if I use this brush, I could kind of brush in this lighter gray color that I have in here. And I could put in some of this other blue right in here. Okay, I'm just grabbing some of these blues, some of that blue-gray. Now, if I come over here to this sketchy brush, and I can see it's at a size 8.1. The opacity is 20%. The blending is 50%. Let me zoom in so we can look at that. And I take that sketchy brush and I start to play around. Look at that. That's actually pretty dark. So it's picking up the color that I have over here. So if I start in here, you see it's too dark. So I don't want that. If I'm working in this light area, I want to use a light color. So let me undo that and undo that. So I'll come over here to this lighter gray blue, and I can just kind of blend that blue-gray color. These brush strokes that I already have, if they need to be softened to kind of follow the contour of the fabric. So I'll come over back here and get some more of this darker blue, right? You kind of pull that together and soften and blend some of those edges. You see how by changing direction, there's a little bit of a highlight here. So I'm going to come up against this, get a little bit lighter, right? You can see it really acts as an interesting blendable color. And then just continue with this, right? Right now I have the brush really, really small. If I increase the brush size, I'm at a 12, right? You see how that's kind of really starting to pick up those colors. Come back over to my palette, start following the contours, and just have some fun with it. I'll show you in a minute what this looks like. Kind of blend and pull some of those colors together there. Every time I change direction, move down this here a little bit. Every time I change direction with the brush, you see how it changes the value. So if you undo a certain one, you come back to the more accurate color and then come in and start putting that in. All right. So work to develop some of these brushing techniques and see what happens as you go. See how that picked up that blue? Okay. I can come back to this blending brush, right? And I can kind of soften the edges on some of those. So I'm using multiple brushes. Pull some of this across to see how I'm using the blending now. And let me get over here to a little bit more of the accurate color. And I'll move that down. Start to pull and blend some of those colors into one another. All right. So I'm going to continue with this. I want you to start going into it and, working on some of the values that you see. And just have some fun with building some of that blocking where the darks are, and then starting to build in some of the lights, and then come in with the blending brush and really start to soften up some of the brush strokes while maintaining some of the darks like I did here where they have that dark contour. Okay? Let me zoom out and I'll show you what I have here. If I go to my layers and I remove this, all right, here's what I've got so far. And you can see I was working on that for several minutes, and obviously I want to continue working on that. I can take that layer now and I can come back to my brush and I can continue to work where I see the checkerboard, all right, the transparent quality coming through. I can tighten up some of that stuff. I can change the brush width and increase some of the values where the darks are. And I can come back in and I can blend and pull. Okay? So have fun with it. See how it goes. And just really try to create that interesting brush strokey look to the subject. So as you can see, I'm just going in, I'm adding some details in here. And every once in a while, I'm taking the opacity of the background down so I can see any holes that may be in the background. Just want you guys to know that this one leg took me over half an hour. Okay, the time lapse really doesn't show that, but you know, took my time on this. It took me about a half hour. I went back in, I overlapped, I layered, changed colors, changed brushes, tried different things. You know, so really just take your time with it. This is only going to be one part, the painting of the legs and the shoes. There's also going to be a part about how we handle the background page, which obviously you'll see at the end of this. You'll see what the one leg looks like with the book page behind it. That is going to also be handled with some version of paint, and I'll explain more about that later on in the next demo. As I finish up the front edge of the shoe here, you can see one of the things that is present in the photo, at least in this case, was that little bit of cast shadow right there. So I just took the brush, which has a little bit of opacity, a little bit of a gray, and a soft edge to the brush, and I just kind of went along the parts of the shoe where I saw that cast shadow, so it appears that it's visible that the foot is actually on a surface.